I don't know about you guys, but I'm a bit of a stickler for stats. Stats, attendance rates, etc., so on and so forth. And today I figure, hey, why don't we look at the highest attendance for each NRL team ever? Well, sort of ever. We are going to be looking at home ground attendance, and it is attendance at the team's current home ground. So not the highest home attendance ever necessarily, if that was achieved at a different stadium. Highest ever attendance at their current ground. We're going to go through an alphabetical order from Broncos to the Tigers, and other than that, let's get into it. Kicking things off with the Brisbane Broncos drawing a crowd of 52,347 fans to Suncorp Stadium to see them take on the Manly Warringah Seagulls in round 10 of the 2016 NRL season. You might be thinking, why such a big crowd for just a normal regular season game towards the start of the year? Brisbane, yeah, sure, they were coming off of losing a grand final the year before. Manly, a bit of an inconsequential team. Why such a big crowd? Well, this was the second game of a doubleheader, with the first game being the defending premier North Queensland Cowboys taking on the Melbourne Storm. I think I know what game might have been the draw there, but nevertheless, this is the biggest crowd Brisbane have ever had at Suncorp. Up next, the Canberra Raiders, who drew an astonishing crowd of 26,567 fans to GIO Stadium in Canberra for a very famous game, a recent game as well, in the memory of many, certainly Canberra Raiders fans as well. It's when they qualified for their first grand final in many a year back in 2019 by winning the preliminary final against the South Sydney Rabbitohs 16-10. Bulldogs time now, and obviously their home ground is ANZ Stadium. That's where the NRL Grand Final was played. The Bulldogs have played in Grand Finals at ANZ Stadium, but I'm not counting that as a home crowd, unfortunately, Bulldogs fans. So your record is not going to be 80-odd thousand, but it is 51,686 that was achieved against fellow tenants of ANZ Stadium, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, of course, in a traditional yearly Good Friday clash in round 4 of 2013. South Sydney taking the win in that one, 17-12. Time for the Sharkies now, and their highest ever attendance at a home game at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium was 23,302 fans, all the way back in round 8 of the 2004 NRL season, up against their local rivals, the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Dragons would end up defeating the Sharks 42-12. On to my boys now, the Gold Coast Titans, who achieved their highest ever attendance at Cbus Super Stadium, the then Skilled Park, of 27,227. In the 2009 qualifying final against local rivals, the Brisbane Broncos, they would go down in that match 40-32. Manly's highest ever attendance at Brookvale Oval was achieved all the way back in 1986 against their arch rivals, at the time at the very least, the Parramatta Eels. 27,655 fans flocked to this one to witness the final round of the season. It was actually round 26 of 1986. On to the Melbourne Storm now, who achieved an attendance record at Amy Park of 28,716 against the New Zealand Warriors in round 8 of the 2014 NRL season. This, of course, was a traditional Anzac Day game. The Newcastle Knights would achieve their highest ever attendance at McDonald Jones Stadium all the way back in 1995, before they'd even won their first premiership, but it would actually come against the team they would win their first premiership against, the Manly Warringah Seagulls, in round 17 of 1995. Newcastle going down in that one 34-18. We're actually sticking with 1995 for the next one, as the New Zealand Warriors achieved their highest ever attendance at Mount Smart Stadium in round 6 of the 1995 NRL season, of course their inaugural season, when they drew a crowd of 32,174 fans to their game against the Illawarra Steelers. The Cowboys' highest attendance at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, of course, would have had to have been achieved within the past couple of years, with the stadium opening in 2020. It was actually their first ever game at the stadium that holds the record of 22,459 fans, as they went down to their arch rivals, the Brisbane Broncos, 28-21. The Parramatta Eels, of course, would have had to have achieved their highest ever attendance recently as well, with Bankwest, now CommBank Stadium, only opening during the 2019 NRL season, and it was indeed during that season when they'd achieved their highest ever attendance of 29,372 fans in the qualifying final in 2019 against the Brisbane Broncos, 58 points to nil. Just a bit of a side note, out of this list, this is the only game that I actually attended live, and it was a pretty fun day out. Not if you're a Broncos fan. Onto the defending premiers, the Penrith Panthers now, who drew a crowd of 22,582 fans to their round 19 clash in 2010 against local and arch rivals, the Parramatta Eels. They lose that game 34 points to 28. Onto the South Sydney Rabbitohs now, and no, I'm not about to count the 2014 NRL Grand Final as their highest ever attendance of over 80,000. Same deal as the Bulldogs here, and their highest ever attendance at ANZ Stadium is 59,708, which is still the highest on this list. In round 26 of 2013 against their local and arch rivals, the Sydney Roosters, they lose that game 24 points to 12. Now with the Dragons, it was a bit of a tricky one because they have two home grounds. They have the traditional Kogarah Oval, now Win Jubilee, I believe it's called, and Win Stadium in Wollongong. So, which was going to go for? Well, I thought I'd throw the Dragons some slack and I would just go with the higher attendance out of the two, which was achieved at Kogarah in 2009, round 3, against their arch rivals, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. 20,847 fans turned out to this game. Interesting to note that I think this is the only fixture where both teams have had each other as their highest ever attendance for a home game. If you remember earlier in the video, the Sharks' highest ever attendance was against the Dragons. This one's vice versa. So maybe a bit more of an underrated rivalry there, the Dragons versus the Sharks. In round 8 of the 2017 NRL season, otherwise known as Anzac Round, we're on to the Roosters, so we're probably talking about Anzac Day, which means we're probably talking about a game against the Dragons that took place in 2017, round 8. As I said, against the Dragons, the Roosters would win this one 13 points to 12 with a total crowd of 40,864 fans piling into Allianz Stadium. Yes, I know they're currently at the Sydney Cricket Ground. However, that's just where they're currently playing while Allianz Stadium is being rebuilt. Their home stadium is still Allianz Stadium, so I'm counting that one. And last but not least, the West Tigers. But which stadium would I go for? Would I go for Leichhardt, Campbelltown, or Bankwest? I am actually going for Bankwest in this one. I believe going forward that will be their primary sort of home stadium. I know it's looked a bit weird over the past couple of years, but I think that's how it should have been anyway. It's just with an interrupted season in 2020 where certain games were played elsewhere for a little bit, and half the 2021 season being played in Queensland. They haven't really played many games at Bankwest, at least as their home ground, but I think they will be going forward. So their highest ever attendance at Bankwest Stadium as the home team came in round 17, 2019 against the other home team, the Parramatta Eels, 30 points to 18 in front of 24,125 fans. Well, that does it for this video. Please let me know in the comments below if you actually attended any of these games and what you thought of the games. If you didn't attend any of them, then please let me know your favourite game of the bunch. Other than that, I've been Oliver from Rugby League. In my opinion, it'd be awesome if you could leave this video a like, share it around with your mates, and subscribe to Rugby League, in my opinion, on YouTube.